Good morning and welcome to the People's National Congress Reform Press Conference for March 2nd, 2023. We do wish to apologize for our late start today. Today's press statement will be read in two parts. We will start with the first part of this press statement being read by Ms. Dawn Hastings.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good day, everyone. Criminal action by the PPP on the demolition of the PNCR regional building at Lethem Region Number 9. The PNCR condemns in the strongest term the demolition of the party's regional building at Lethem by the agents of the People's Progressive Party and the Irfan Ali-led regime under the watch of the Guyana Police Force. Items belonging to the party that were in the building were also seized during this unlawful operation. The PNCR deems the government's action as state terrorism. This action is consistent with the pattern of disrespect for the rule of law and democracy that has been displayed by the Irfan Ali-led regime. Clearly, their belief is that they are above the law and accountable to any of the state's institutions. These actions are dangerously provocative, and it is clear that the PPP's aim is for total dominance and control. Moreover, this criminal action is inconsistent with the Irfan Ali's One Guyana. The party has been in possession of this property for approximately 50 years, and its rights to ownership and possession has never been disputed. The party has instructed its officials in the region to make a police report and calls upon the Commissioner of Police to ensure that there is a fair and impartial investigation into this matter. The party is also in the process of informing the diplomatic community of this egregious action that has taken place. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take this moment as well to introduce the rest of my panel. Today, with the GS, as this statement has been read, is Mr. Darren Wade, attorney at law, and to his right is none other than Member of Parliament, Ms. Amanza Walton Desir. I do believe at this time Ms. Desir would like to make a statement.
Thank you. I have prepared a statement that we would have, well, we are in the process of dispatching to members of the diplomatic community, and we want to take the opportunity to share this statement with members of the media. And the statement reads as follows. On Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, agents of the PPPC administration, accompanied by members of the Guyana Police Force, descended upon, looted, and demolished the office building at Lethem Central Rupununi, which has been occupied by the People's National Congress Reform for some 50 years. Officers of the PNCR who arrived at the scene were assaulted by the Venezuelan nationals hired to carry out the demolition. under the supervision of the Guyana Police Force. The relevant police reports, as the General Secretary pointed out, the relevant police reports have been made. It must be noted that all of the parties' records, our documentation, and the reports containing membership information, etc., they have disappeared. Office equipment, tools, and other material have been destroyed. And up to the time of this press conference, our party officials have been combing through the rubble to make an assessment of the items destroyed. Importantly, a number of barrels, 11 in total, containing foodstuff, clothing, that were donated by overseas-based Guyanese for distribution to the surrounding communities, have vanished. We cannot account for those. Another point to note is that the objections report compiled by our agents in Region 9, which was due to be submitted today at 1800 hours, has disappeared. That report has disappeared, and we are trying to ascertain the whereabouts of our records at this time. Now, understandably, this jeopardizes our ability as a party to respond to the deadline that GCOM has given for 6 o'clock this afternoon. The right, ladies and gentlemen of the media, not to be deprived of property without the due process of law is one that is established, and it is a cornerstone tenet of law and of civilized society. We consider the actions of the PPPC government a deliberate attempt to set Guyanese on a collision course and calculated to foster unrest. These actions, which can only be deemed as state-sponsored terrorism, cannot go unnoticed or uncondemned by the diplomatic community. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will open for questions from the media on our statement. And of course, you know, we do this by the raise of hand. Any questions? All right, so I see the hand of Miss Svetlana.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning. The General Secretary of the party indicated that the office or the building has been in use by the PNCR for some 50 years. Could you say if the party has a legal documentation for the building? And the RU of Region 9, Mr. Carl Seymour, also indicated that the party was served several notices asking for it to vacate the building to make way for a health center. Could you say if that is so, if the party received any notice, eviction notice?
Go ahead.
Is it Ms. Marshall that asked the question?
Yes, that is.
Yes, Ms. Marshall, what I will say is this. This property has been on the asset register of the PNCR from the inception, in excess of 40 years. I will say as well that it is a fundamental tenet, like I said, of law, that one cannot be deprived of property without due process of the law. What I can say is that we are not in receipt of a court order or any court action that would indicate that there is some dispute about the ownership and possession of this property.
Yeah. Just to follow up,
May I add before?
Could you
1 second, Miss
confirm or
Marshall.
negate?
Miss Marshall, just 1 second. Attorney at law would like to also respond to part of that question.
Thank you. My comrade and sister mentioned the issue of possession. The issue of possession by law has nothing to do with ownership. The fact that the party is in possession of the property, and if the state now claims that they are the owner, then the right thing to do was to institute legal proceedings. However, based upon my understanding and appreciation of the law, the party has legal title to the premises in question.
Just a follow-up to my question. The RU, as I said, indicated that several notices were sent to the party. I'm just trying to confirm that the party was in receipt of those notices.
No.
And if the party would have advised the RU or the government on the proper procedure that should follow.
May I say, Ms. Marshall, that it is not the place of the party to advise the government that has an Attorney General and an entire Attorney General's department on what the law is. They are aware of what the law is, but instead they have displayed complete and total disregard for the law, and they are attempting, as they have done, to be bullies and to instill fear in the people of Guyana. They are sitting in the seat of government. It is incumbent upon them to display regard for the law and for the rule of law, and they have failed to so do. And they must be held accountable for their lack of ability or their unwillingness to follow what the law is on this matter. So it is not for us to advise them as to anything. They have Anil Nandlal there.
All right, thank you.
I would like to ask whether, in light of the RU's position that the party had been given several notices, whether the party's office in Letton had notified its headquarters and to seek advice from the party's headquarters on the way forward.
What we can say, Mr. Cabral, is what we have been insisting on all morning, that there is a legal process that must be followed in terms of, one, dispossessing us of a building that we are in possession with. Of course, this is separate and apart. Mr. Cabral, I'm speaking, sir. You cannot ask me a question and then disturb me in the middle of my answer. It's not proper. So if you'll allow me to finish, I'd be happy to. Will you allow me to finish? Thank you. Like I was saying, there is a process to be followed, and the government failed to follow the process. And answers must be demanded from the government as to why they did not follow the correct procedure. And that is what I will say to that.
When it comes to my question, stands that the regional office of the PNC Region 9, that they inform the headquarters of the PNC whether they receive notices and also to seek advice on what should be the approach going forward.
Don't you want to take that? I am aware that notices, I think 1 or 2 notices were sent based on what we were told on the ground this morning. But again, those letters from the REO have not, they're not a reflection of the proper legal process. And so again, it is for the government to follow the proper process, right? And the rule of law. The law is clear on how these things are to happen. And so that has not happened, and therefore the government is completely in the wrong in this regard.
If you can please allow me 1 or 2 other follow-ups kindly. GS, could you say, in light of those notices, what steps have you taken to safeguard the party's materials? That is to say, your right to records election-related materials and all the items that you have in the office, so that should it come down to that, you should be not suffer the losses that you say you suffer.
Mr. Shibral, let me say that your statement presupposes that we should anticipate unlawful action on the part of the government. And I cannot understand that that is what you are saying to us. Up to yesterday afternoon, our offices were open. Up to yesterday afternoon, our staff was on the ground. Up to yesterday afternoon, we were carrying out works as it relates to the local government elections and compiling the objection report, which is due to be presented at 6 o'clock today. So if you are proposing to impose a burden upon us to anticipate that the Irfan Ali administration will be operating in such an egregious and unlawful manner, then I'm sorry that I have to disagree. We have occupied that office for close to 50 years.
All right, you can go ahead, J.S.
Yes.
I may add, Manza. I, as the General Secretary, have not seen any copy of any documents, you know, if it's a warning or asking us to you know, in connection with the building, to evict the building, or to, I haven't seen any document unto this date. And also want to remind this nation that there is a typical example. When we were in government, there is something that is called the Red Building, and which is in use, the Red House, sorry, which is in use unto this present day. When we were in government, we did not demolish that building, even though we had some issues with land occupation, the space, and all sorts of that. We had never undertaken any action to break down that Red House, which still stands unto this day and is being used. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Adam Harris.
Yes, good morning all.
Good
Can
morning.
you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay. My question has to do with whether the party has taken note of the approach by the authorities or whoever to operate under the cloak of darkness. The government is not known to execute lawful actions in the dark. And this attack or this destruction was carried out sometime after midnight, as the old people would say, before board wide wake. Does that signal anything to the government?
Does it signal anything to the government?
Or the opposition.
Sorry, does it signal anything to the party?
I think it signals to the nation the position that this government is taking is completely illegal. If you were so confident in your actions, there's no need to do it under the cloak of darkness. If you were so confident that what you're doing is correct, you will operate in broad daylight. And the fact that at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you would hire Venezuelan nationals to demolish, vandalize, and loot a building belonging to your political opponent is something that the government must be held accountable for. So I think it demonstrates to the entire Guyana the type of administration that we have.
Quick follow-up. In the wake of the destruction of the property, has the party made any approach to the authorities to ascertain a reason for such an action? And if so, has there been a response?
As at press time, no. As at this time, there has not been a response. I know that our legal counsel, Mr. Wade and Mr. Ford, have been in touch with the officials, the party officials on the ground who were assaulted this morning in the process, and the requisite police reports have been filed. We are still awaiting word from the government as to what would occasion their going in the dark of night to demolish our building, steal our records, destroy our equipment, and place our ability to meet critical GCOM deadlines in jeopardy.
Right. Thank you.
Marshall?
Hold one sec, please.
If anybody might,
Just,
yeah.
Mr. Just 1 second for me. All right. You can go ahead, Mr. Vickery, and then I'll take Svetlana.
All right, thank you. Javon Vickery, Dan Standard. Can you say, you mentioned equipment and several other things that were missing. Could you give a value to what, as to how much?
Certainly we couldn't. We are still combing through the rubble. Our party officials are still on the ground trying to ascertain, exactly what has been destroyed, what has been stolen, because like I said, a number of items are missing, our records are missing, so it is not possible for us at this point to give a figure as to what has been destroyed.
And while we cannot give
one moment, Mr. Vickery.
And while we cannot give a figure for what is missing, what is of great concern to the parties, as my sister Manson mentioned before, the records of persons, registration, and so forth. We are aware of vindictive this government is, and what we would expect is for them to expand, and the exposure to those persons whose registrations are in the party, persons who are affiliated with the party, persons who may have secrecy or who don't want to go, who do not want to be outward. So now the PVP is armed with this information, and we could see in the near future vindictive actions against those persons. But the party is always ready to stand and support anyone who is victimized by the PVP regime.
And these one question, and these records that you're missing, these weren't uploaded anywhere electronically. These were just exactly what they were, right there.
We are still in the process of ascertaining. You appreciated this would have happened in the darkness of night. Right. And so as at this time, we are still trying to have an appreciation of what we would have stored centrally, what would have been uploaded, and what was there on the ground. Because like I said, up to last evening, our officials were there working to meet this GCOM deadline.
All right, I see the hand of Miss Marshall. I'll take her.
I know you spoke about, members of the table spoke about the party members in that were assaulted, filing a report at the police station, as well as a note to be sent to the diplomatic community. Could you indicate whether the party will be moving to the court filing legal actions against the state regarding the removal of the party from that building?
Yes, the party will be challenging the PVP government. Yes, the building belongs to us, the property belongs to us, and certainly as a political party we must show example. We don't want our citizens to be bullied, and certainly we will not be bullied by the PVP on lawfulness. The property is ours, and we will enforce our rights in the courts. The PVP action by entering the property, the mere fact that they enter is trespass, is unlawful. The removal and the destruction of the party property are also creates cause of actions.
One moment, Mr. Shabral.
Are we there?
Just 1 second. I saw Miss Svetlana still trying to say something, so I'm just ensuring she's finished before I give you the go ahead.
I'm finished. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mr. Shabal?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Mr. Way, given the fact that this is a live and fresh issue, only a matter of hours before now, sir, can you say how recent has been your research into the ownership status of the property?
Oh, I didn't get the question, please.
How recent has been your ownership research? Ownership is, how recent has been your research? Ownership of the property?
Mr. Shabal, based upon my understanding of the law, as I mentioned before, the party owns the property, has legal title and right to the property.
Can you say when was the title assumed?
As I said, based upon my understanding and appreciation of the law, the party has title to the property.
May I, Mr. Shabral, because I sense your line of questioning, but I want to remind you that even, for example, a tenant who may not have ownership, and I want to choose my words carefully because I do not want to be quoted as saying that we are tenants, but I'm giving you this example as an attorney so that you understand that the law is aimed at protecting citizens against the type of behavior you saw displayed by this PPPC administration. Even a tenant cannot be arbitrarily dispossessed of a property that they are renting. There is a process of law that must be employed. And I am hopeful that I will see and hear from you, Mr. Shabral, the type of questioning leveled towards the PPPC administration as to their failure or otherwise to follow what the legal process is. Even if I am a landlord, I will say I just can't go and bring the police and throw out a tenant. There is actually a legal court-sanctioned procedure that must occur.
And if such action, and if such, as my sister, such process is not followed, that action is criminal as well. It's a criminal action. So while it's enforceable in the civil courts, it's also enforceable in the criminal court. So those actions by the agents and servants of the state and the police, because this was supervised by the police, because they were aiding and abetting. So all parties involved in this action acted criminally, quite frankly.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Ms. Marshall.
Relating to the GECOM materials that you said cannot be found, and given the deadline today, is the party moving to issue a formal notification to the Elections Commission and maybe possibly seek an extension specifically for those documents to be submitted at a later date?
What I can say is that our agents on the ground, they are performing that assessment, and within another 2 hours, they will advise us as to whether they have been able to salvage anything, and certainly the option is ours to indicate to GECOM formally that we will require an extension of the deadline given the circumstances beyond our control.
All right.
I have a question, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Yeah. My question has to do with the fact that Mr. Carl Parker in a podcast said he got a call from Georgetown, which meant that somebody in Georgetown was aware of the demolition. Are any of you in a position to say who would have made that call to Mr. Parker at that hour? And perhaps how you would have come by the information?
No, I don't believe we are in a position to say who called Mr.
Right.
Parker. What I could say for myself as a
Mr.
member
Parker
of Parliament and GS, etc., that we would have received calls from Lethem at about 1:30 this morning, indicating that the office building was being demolished.
Thank you.
Can I also follow up based on Mr. Adams' question? Mr. Parker, in his statement, said that upon receiving the call, he went to the site, he saw what was happening, and the party sought to mobilize its members. However, it was just him and another person. And in saying that, he expressed his disappointment. As leaders of the party, what do you have to say about that? In a sense, the inability of the party to round up support at critical time.
Wrong to do what?
Yeah, that's a button.
I'm not sure that we can, I understand and appreciate what Mr. Parker was going through on the ground as a human being, because certainly you can understand the emotions, you can understand the frustration at seeing such a blatantly illegal act being condoned by the police, one, and being carried out under the protection of the police force, too. And so I understand that he would have been very, very frustrated. I also understand that it was the wee hours of the morning, and so everyone might not have had the opportunity to react in as prompt a manner as he might have been. But certainly I understand that his utterings were made out of an abundance of emotions that I too felt when I saw the video and saw the fact that Mr. Parker was there and being assaulted by one of the nationals when he attempted to film what was going on. So I do not believe that it is a reflection on the party's ability to mobilize. This was the dead of night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and supporters live, you know, in a very scattered landscape. So certainly, but I will say that I empathize and I understand the emotions that Mr. Parker felt, because I felt them too, being this far away and watching at that video.
A quick question. Go ahead. Are any of you in a position to say what is happening now as we speak? By now, the party members should have been mobilized. They should have been at the scene. They should have been attempting to establish some base from which they could operate. Could anyone say what's happening, please?
Certainly, within the last hour, we are in constant communication with members on the ground in Lethem. That would have stopped because, of course, we have to necessarily have our phones off during the press conference. But they are on scene. They are engaged in assessing the damage, and we are receiving reports hourly as to what the state of affairs is on the ground in Lethem.
And the police commissioner is reported to be in Lethem at this time.
Yes, we are advised that he landed within the hour.
Do you think, well, no, there's speculation. I can't ask you to speculate on his reason for being there. But are you in a position to say whether he has been approached on this matter?
What we know, I advise the comrades on the ground to make a report, and they made the report at the Lethem police station. They are awaiting instructions from the commander, who is in the meeting with the commissioner of police. So one would like to believe, so since this is a pressing issue, the commissioner of police and the commander, as soon as they're out of that meeting, they'll be able to address it.
One last thing. Sorry. Go on, Dennis. Go on.
Thank you. I understand what Councillor Walton is here and Councillor Wade had explained previously about the matter of possession and so on and ownership. But I just wanted a clarification, Mr. Wade. You referred to the ownership earlier. I wanted to know if this is a result of years of occupancy or actual documented ownership by title, because you did say one thing earlier and then a few minutes later you said something that I was not clear about. So it's really a clarification. Is it ownership as a result of years of occupancy or by way of title? That's a legal
question.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my sister. Can you identify for me what did I say that is inconsistent? Because my position has been clear, based upon my understanding and appreciation of the law, of over 200 or 300 years of law and the facts. There's a ruling coming out of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and it is based on that premise I give my opinion that the party has legal title to the premises in question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, are there any other questions on?
A quick one.
Go ahead.
Has the leader of the party been made aware of this development?
Yes, the leader has been is quite aware. The leader is very active. The leader is working assiduously. Since I wake up this morning, I have been on this matter. And all of us, as they write, all of us, the leader has us working assiduously to ensure that this matter must not go unanswered. Every effort will be made to ensure that justice is done.
Thank you.
And has there been a reaction from any source outside of the government or the party? Any reaction? Has there been, for example, a reaction from an international community, the overseas members abroad, members of the diplomatic community, anything at all? Has there been a reaction?
Well, certainly, Adam, if you, Mr. Harris, if you were to see social media, you would see the outrage expressed. In terms of the diplomatic community, there again, there is a procedure to be followed, but we will be meeting with members of the diplomatic community, and we are in the process of dispatching to them a formal protest and bringing to their attention just how outrageous and against the basic tenets of law and order the conduct of the PPPC administration has been. And so I anticipate within the coming days that we should see statements emerging about the concern of the community on this action by the PPPC administration.
And if one are to read and be students of history, when Hitler started governing Germany, these are the type of things that he would have done. So I guess I would like to believe that the international community are aware of these type of action. It's very dangerous. You don't do this to your political opponent. You don't try to silence them. And this certainly is an attempt to silence and to get people timid and afraid. But certainly the party will not stand down.
I see the hand of Ms. Kiter News, Ms. Ramsey, I think it is. Ms. Rihanna? All right, I don't know if she's hearing or if probably her hand was up by mistake. At this time, we'll take if there's any other question, one other question.
Hello?
I'm hearing
Hi.
you now.
Good afternoon.
Yes, yes.
Sorry about that. I had trouble unmuting. I heard you speaking about all the things that happened, but I'm not hearing what is the party, I don't know if I missed it or something, what the party is doing going forward. Are you going planning to take the government to court over this issue, or have you drafted your document, your legal document, and said what's the way forward?
To be honest, this morning, there was an attempt to start drafting. However, we have to prepare the press conference and so forth. So yes, attempts a start. One of my initial action was to approach the court via an oral application, as was done in the Christopher Jones matter. If you could recall, when the police unlawfully trespassed upon Christopher Jones, the court issued a conservatory order based upon an application over the fort. So that was my initial thought for us to go down to share with the legal team. So certainly in the near future, legal action will be instituted against the state of Guyana and also the Regional Democratic Council, which is a separate legal entity.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing, just talking too much, I'm shut my mouth after this.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
The General Secretary did say that this provocation is perhaps a step towards eliciting unrest and that kind of thing. Do you get the impression that your party members are so angry that we could see a spark somewhere?
I think it's difficult to understate just how egregious this action is. And one has to wonder whether it is not a deliberate attempt, like I said earlier, to set political groupings on a collision course and cause unrest. Look, Mr. Harris, even the UN Declaration on Human Rights says in its preamble that the rule of law must be upheld lest men as a last resort should rebel. And that recognizes that every human being has a certain capacity and a certain threshold as to what they can and cannot take. And certainly I believe the government, if it is serious about this one Guyana that it preaches, must operate with that level of awareness. And they must operate with the understanding that it is important to uphold the rule of law. They sit in the seat of government, as they like to remind us. The onus is therefore upon them to lead by example. And the people of Guyana are saying that they're failing to do so, and failing miserably.
Thank you.
And this is happening even as the government is moving the charge, or has charged and has issued wanted bulletins for people for committing acts of terrorism for responding to a situation on East Coast Demerara.
And this is not lost on the people of Guyana, and we will be issuing, you'll appreciate that this is a special press conference convened very quickly to address this matter that happened at Lethem, because we owe a duty to our members and to our supporters to keep them updated. But we will be issuing a fulsome statement on this issue of the what we view as illegal arrests of our citizens. And we are very clear in our minds that this is an act of state-sponsored terrorism. We are very, very clear about that. And that is the reason that it had to be conducted at 1 a.m. in the morning when everybody was tucked into their homes and sleeping.
All right. Are there any other questions at this time as we wrap up today's press conference? All right, and just a note on what Ms. Amanza was making reference to, the party will be issuing a statement shortly on the matter that Mr. Adam Harris has just raised here, and you will be in receipt of that as well, so very shortly. All right, so with no other questions being raised, I'll take this time to thank the media personnel for their patience and joining this press conference today. And we thank the viewing public as well for joining us. Do have a wonderful afternoon.